Hey there, Miss Aaron. So sorry that I missed your question. It looks like you posed a question up to the post there last week, and I apologize. I missed the question. So, what's a great question to ask in school? So I think about, and I asked the girls actually a little bit ago, just so to make sure that I was, not living in La La Land. So for me, when I think about school, like there's a lot of context around school, right? And questions asked. There's questions with, our social circles. There's questions as it relates to the teacher. There's just questions in general as it relates to the material. And so there's a lot, right? There's a lot there. So I just try to think it through a few things that were relevant. And what I mean by relevant, or how I determine relevancy, is when I think about the things that impact me, energy-wise or emotionally the most in school. So I think there's a ton of questions around, I'm also grilling. There's a ton of questions around social circles there, right? And so I won't get into that. But when I think about what impacts us most energy-wise in the school context, or the context of school, frequently is that relationship. There's that kind of power dynamic with a professor, with a teacher, where we know that we're supposed to respect and honor the teacher, right? Because that's their role, and there's power and position there, and I get that, and there's what's good and what's bad, and so we take all of that and set all that aside, just understanding that there's a lot of context and dialogue that can be had around that kind of power dynamic when it's right, and how it's right to challenge that when it's necessary. But again, if I get back to the energy conversation, when I think about success and questions as it relates to assignments mostly, right? Because I think that's where a lot of the energy and emotions and stuff really come into play is around assignments. And so even my post was in relation to, or started kind of planting the seed, was Raina had an assignment for one of her classes that involved interviews. And so literally the basis of a good interview is good questions, right? And that's what stirred some of that thought process, was that going at it with regular questions, and then going at it with well thought out questions, allowed her to get a very different result. And so she was able to learn that in the process, was just giving her some space to kind of fail a little bit with some okay questions, right? But then helping her construct a little better questions as it relates to an interview, and then watching her get the desired result of a really good dialogue and conversation with the interviewee. And the benefits that came out of it, like the fruits that came out of that, what you learned from the other individual, the context, the things that are important, that there was actually a relationship built because of asking better questions, right? So again, if I go to school specifically, and I'm thinking through that, there's a couple things that showed up, and I kind of asked the girls open-ended, and they kind of came up with the same thing. The first thing that comes up is why, right? So as it relates to an assignment, I think one of the things where I had the most trouble in school is I am most motivated to do what's asked of me when I understand why. Now, there are some teachers, right? Again, we have to be, we have to kind of know that we're going to have some of those struggles. Some teachers are better equipped to answer these kind of questions, and others aren't. And so I don't view that as right or wrong. I just view that as that's their experience to draw from, right? Some teachers have figured out a way to teach in such a way that when they're questioned, they don't get defensive, and they see this as an opportunity to maybe teach a little differently, right? Or to share the same information with a little different angle, so that everybody is motivated, because we're all motivated differently. So again, the question of why. So what the assignment that's being given, or the information that we're discussing, can you help me understand why this is really important? Because we all learn things in school, and I think they're getting better of the experiential learning style. But we all learn things in school in such a way that's like, here's the information in a book, study it, memorize it, and then we test to that. And I know that we're getting better about that, but it still shows up, right? And a lot of that difference is being driven by the teacher's desire to create a different experience for the kids in the classroom, and recognizing that everybody learns a little differently, and so being able to teach to that. So so back to the point that one of the questions that I like to ask, especially when I feel myself really struggling with connecting to the assignment or to the information, is help me understand why this is important, or where this is used, where you've seen this show up in history. Give me some context, right? Give me some real life examples of application so that I can make it my own. Because when it's my own, then I can apply it better. And that's ultimately why we're in school, right? Is so that we learn things that we can then apply, that are helpful, as we mature and go through life. So why is one of the big ones. The other one was, lost my train of thought. The other one was around, can you give me, or sometimes it's, we found it helpful just to ask, can you give me some more context, right? So, and again, I think that gets back to different people's learning style. It's okay to ask for something to be shared, the same information to be shared differently. I think that's another piece, right? Like, can you say that a different way? Can you share that? Can you give me another example? Those are all questions that push the teacher. And we've got some phenomenal educators. So if any of my educator friends listen to this, please know that I know your job is hard. I get it. It's difficult teaching adults. It's difficult teaching kids. Like, I fully respect and honor you for what you're doing. So I say that to say that when you ask for a different example, when you ask for a different context, when you ask for something a little outside of the norm, it pushes that teacher into a critical thinking situation as well. Because what we need to know is for those of us that are wired this way, we need to be able to connect the information to our dialogue, right? To what's important to us, so that then it matters to us. Because things that matter to us, we take action on, we learn, we figure out, we problem solve, we critically think through and about, right? So I have to connect the information and the material to something that matters to me. Can you give me a different example? Can you give me more context? How, those kinds of questions create a different environment inside the classroom that causes everybody to think just a little bit differently about maybe some very familiar information. So I didn't mean for this to go 8 minutes, so I'm going to shut it down. But man, thanks for the question. Again, I apologize it took me, that I didn't see it. And I love this kind of stuff. So thanks for the prompt. It made my night. As if grilling meat on the grill doesn't make a guy's night, right? I'm a terrible griller, by the way, but I'm learning. So the only way to get better is reps, right? So thanks for the question, Aaron, and I hope that answered your question. And I love this dialogue. So I appreciate you. I appreciate the prompt. Take care, guys.